Welcome back, everyone. This is our third and final video for Chapter 10. This video will talk primarily about some of the cultural and social issues within the publishing industry.
Hello, everyone. This is the final video for Chapter 10, which is Part 3. This video will talk about the publishing industry and major trends in books and publishing. Now, there are many issues to consider within publishing. The first is preservation. As we've looked at the history of publishing and books, it's really important that we continue to preserve not only the physical copies of books, but also providing digitization for those historical documents. So the Google Books is the most extensive digitization project going on right now, where Digital Public Libraries of America is made up of many nonprofit archives that then works to preserve these famous works. The second issue is censorship. Now, a book challenge is a formal complaint to have a book removed from a public or school library. Upon a challenge, a gatekeeper, such as the public school or a public library, will need to decide whether that book challenge is appropriate or not. The most censored book in United States history is Mark Twain's Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. However, you can see many examples of the most challenged books within recent decades, including Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings, To Kill a Mockingbird, Diary of a Young Girl, Charlotte's Web, and even The Adventures of Captain Underpants. In looking at 2019's most challenged books, you can see that there are some similarities across the board for the reasons that they were challenged. In 2019, the primary reason for a challenge was LGBTQ plus content, or it being witchcraft and wizardry. Harry Potter still on the most challenged list in 2019. Now, in terms of the publishing industry, the organization and ownership of the industry is really important. Acquisition managers or acquisition editors are those that seek out and sign authors. They're the ones that handle the subsidiary rights, such as a screenplay or movie or TV adaptation of their book. Advance money is an important concept within the industry as well. It's how most authors get paid. So it's an early payment that is subtracted from your royalties, where you are given advance money to write or publish the book. And then as you make money off the book, you are out that advance money. Typically, it's 5 to 15% of the expected revenue from that book. So you can see some of the highest revenues off of their books in recent years. Now, developmental and copy editors are important as well. They're the people that actually focus on the development of the book or novel. And then copy editors actually do line edits and ensuring kind of the quality of writing. Design managers are also important. They typically are ones who work with the authors to ensure that the designs are reflective of what they want. So there are about 5 publishing houses that own 3/4 of the public publishing industry. Those include Penguin Random House, Hachette, Harper & Collins, Macmillan, and Simon & Schuster. Now, this limited ownership, which is a form of media convergence, is especially troubling when you look at diversity within publishing, because especially in terms of racial dynamics, 75% of the publishing industry is white. It's primarily cis women. It is primarily straight, and is primarily not disabled. And yet, because books have such a large impact on our world, it's important that the industry becomes more reflective of the community of readers. This is particularly true of African American representation within the industry. You can see that only 5% of authors who are given book deals are actually Black. then literary agents, editorial teams, marketing and publicity, sales, reviewers. There's such a lack of diversity in the publishing industry, and it's something that has been heavily criticized in recent years. Why does it matter? Well, when you don't have representation and diversity within your organization, it means your products are going to be less diverse because you're not trying to pull in as many diverse voices. For example, main characters in US children's literature are overwhelmingly white. And so if you are like my godchildren who are African American, you're not really seeing yourself when you open up a children's book, when you're looking for heroes or adventures for you to read about. And so the lack of representation across the publishing industry is very disheartening and something that needs to change in future years. In terms of how to sell books, there are three primary ways to do this. The first is through bookstores, brick and mortars. This is like your Barnes and Nobles or Books A Million. Now, print sales dropped slightly, only by about 1% in 2019, but independent bookstore numbers were actually up. So while the larger retailers were declining, independent bookstores were going up as people were trying to shop local. However, many of those independent bookstores and independent, like small publishing houses, are actually suffering because of COVID-19. So it's something we need to consider and keep an eye on. If you're really a book fan, if you are a bookworm and just absolutely love books, you need to go to Argentina. Buenos Aires has the most bookstores per capita than any other city around the world. So just keep that in mind. And a term that you need to know as you're navigating through our readings talk about dumps. And I just wanted to make sure you understood that the term dumps are large cardboard displays like the one you see on the right, where you're trying to sell books. This is typically used in grocery stores or pharmacies in order to sell books in non-traditional bookstores. Now, Amazon or digital sales are a large part of how to sell books. Amazon, which was created by Jeff Bezos in 1995, actually holds 72% of the US online book sale market as of 2018. In 2017, that was only 45% of all print sales. And so you can see how much hold Amazon really has between sales of print books, audiobooks, and ebooks. Now, 76% of authors actually use Amazon to sell their books. If you didn't know, the popular book 50 Shades of Grey by E.L. James was originally self-published on Amazon and then picked up by publishers when it became very successful. However, self-publishing is not very lucrative. Typically, it tends to be very few people who find success through self-publishing. Same thing for e-publishing. There are sites that allow authors to publish outside of Amazon as well, to self-publish their work. However, these are even less successful typically than Amazon. Now you can see how total sales of print books has changed in recent years, especially due to COVID-19. So you can see year to year from 2019 to 2020, there was a 3.6% increase, which is pretty high. And then even from July 18th to the previous week, it was up 16%. So COVID-19 and the quarantines really caused a large increase in readership. Primarily in nonfiction. There was a large jump in nonfiction in 2020. Adult fiction is always a very popular genre. Juvenile nonfiction, juvenile fiction, as students were trying to e-learn, I imagine, and then young adult literature as well. Hardbacks still remain one of the fastest selling book format, but as always, trade paperback will typically outsell hardcovers and especially mass market paperbacks. Now, if you're trying to look for some good reads, got some suggestions for you based on bestsellers from 2019 and 2020. So in 2019, the ones on the left are the top 5 selling books for fiction. The ones on the right are the top selling nonfiction books. I have actually read all of those, and they are all excellent. For Amazon, they always put out like a weekly chart. They're called Amazon charts of the top 20 most read and sold books. I just wanted to point out that among the most read and typically among the most sold, Harry Potter continues to remain on top. I don't say this because I'm a Harry Potter fan. I just want you to really understand the effect that Harry Potter has had long term on the publishing industry. Midnight Sun is actually a prequel to the Twilight series. I have not read it yet. I likely will. I know it's terrible, but probably still will read that one, but it has been very popular in its release. Something to note, though, as we talk about diversity and issues in publishing, I think it's really important to remember that while there are representation issues in the industry overall, books really do have the power to change people. In June 12th of this year, as a lot of the racial protests were going on, nonfiction books, particularly those discussing race, were among the national bestsellers. And so it really talks about, this speaks to the influence that movements can have on the publishing industry and how the publishing industry can really influence movements as well. I have read White Fragility, How to Be an Anti-Racist. So you want to talk about race and why are all the Black kids sitting together in the cafeteria? These are excellent books to help educate yourself on racial issues if you're hoping to do that. So that's going to do it for chapter 10 about books in the publishing industry.
So that will do it for our chapter 10 lecture videos. Make sure you do your discussion post on gatekeeping for books. Remember, your original posts are always due on Friday with 2 replies to your peers due by Sunday night. Now, our exam is next week, Monday, February 15th. I've provided you with a worksheet for review, and it also describes a lot of the details about the exam. So make sure you look at that and work through that worksheet. If you have any questions after completing that worksheet, please feel free to use the discussion board called Exam 1 Review to ask any questions you may have. I will not be answering any questions that are posted later than Sunday, February 14th. And so please make sure you ask your questions prior to that date. Your exam will be on Monday, February 15th. It is a timed exam. You will only have 90 minutes, but it is open book, open notes. I do not suggest that you try to rely on your books and notes without previous study or previous work through your worksheet, because you just won't have enough time to complete it. The exam will be administered through Canvas, but you don't need any proctoring software since it is an open exam. I will say that a lot of my students think that because it's open book, open note, it will not be a very difficult exam, but they tend to be pretty difficult questions. So I do suggest that you heavily rely on your worksheet review and do look over the notes that you've taken from lectures. If you have not been watching the videos and reading your textbook, you will need to do so in order to do well on the exam. If you have any questions either about chapter 10 or the upcoming exam, you can always email me. I am here for you guys. If you need anything, please feel free to reach out. Have a great rest of your week.